I first would like to particularly welcome His Excellency, Ambassador of Armenia, and also the various diplomats we have in the room today. We have senior diplomats from the Embassy of Turkey and Azerbaijan, and where else? Gambia, sorry, Ambassador of Gambia. Yes, how are you? Very good to see you here. Thank you so much for coming. So we have a few senior diplomats here, but also we have with us quite a good range of students from Doha Institute and colleagues from the Doha Institute, professors who've joined us for today. My name is Sultan Barakat, and I'm the director of the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies, which may be known to some of you. Some of you are faces I've seen before in previous events. We have, over the last 2 years, become one of the places in Doha, but maybe the most, I would like to think, most important non-governmental space where we offer opportunities for different views, sometimes very divergent, very different views, to be expressed freely in an environment where we can exchange ideas about some delicate concepts. Some of you would have maybe followed last year in October, November, we hosted Minister Muttaqi, the Taliban Minister of Foreign Affairs, against the advice of a lot of countries and a lot of embassies here. But I think it was very, very important that he came, he had the opportunity to speak, and on the record, he was heard to say what he thinks should be happening in Afghanistan. And as a result, many important contacts took place between him and embassies here in Doha, and have developed into strategies and procedures on the ground that helped Afghanistan today. We also undertake rigorous research, but we give particular importance to the idea of dialogue. And we were very fortunate in November also of last year to host Mr. Farid Shivayev, who was the former Azeri ambassador, who worked in a number of countries and came especially from Azerbaijan to speak about the Southern Caucasus problem, including the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh. And today we are really pleased and honored to continue that conversation, but this time by hosting Dr. Narek Adamyan, as in Adam Yan. Yes, very good, that's easy. Adamyan. Narek is here. Oh, see. I didn't realize there's so many, otherwise we would have waited. Thank you very much. Welcome. Narek Adamyan is the co-founder of the Orbeli Center and serves as a lecturer in political science at the RA Academy. The Orbeli Center, which I hope maybe also Narek can say a few words in detail about the center later on, is one of the projects of Public Relations and Information Center of staff of the Prime Minister's Office of the Republic of Armenia. And it conducts research and analysis of economy, regional aspects, domestic politics, as well as foreign policy, security, and infrastructure and media. I'm very pleased to welcome Narek, who I've got to know over the internet. He was recommended to us by His Excellency the Ambassador. We got in touch and have been talking about the importance of developing a conversation. And I hope the presence of senior diplomats from Azerbaijan and Turkey is in the same spirit. We need to try and take this forward in a way that can be constructive. We do understand that from one perspective, the conflict is over because the war has been won. From another perspective, the conflict maybe persists because there are some issues still not resolved. From a regional perspective, it is a gridlock because it has stopped a lot of developments for the region. Great deal of opportunity for the region is missing because of what remains of this issue and what the war has resulted in. But from here, I must emphasize, and I do get in trouble quite frequently because of this, we are independent center. And I'm trying to become even more and more independent. But we are independent. We are not related to the government of Qatar. I do not represent the views of the government of Qatar. This is not an initiative that Qatar is planning or working on or trying to do anything. And I must say this very clearly because I've been told in Syria, we visited recently, our visit caused a lot of trouble in the sense that people's expectations were that Qatar is coming to do something. But I think this is an opportunity for our collective wisdom to come together, and maybe we independently, academics, thought leaders, researchers, can actually make a difference. And I think from what I know of the situation, this is really what is needed to move the settled situation that is now no war, no peace kind of thing that's ongoing. It does require more ideas. And for that, I'm extremely grateful for Narek to have taken time out of his busy schedule and travel all the way from Armenia to be with us today. The format for this is that we will give Narek first the opportunity to speak. You get, 20 minutes, half an hour?
20 minutes, 25 minutes.
20 minutes or so. And then I will engage him in a conversation, and then I'll come back to you all for question and answer session. And then very, very importantly, after this, we must have coffee together, and despite any disagreement, and consume what we have already purchased outside. And the reason for that is the first time since Corona, we're allowed to bring coffee. Usually because of Corona, it's been prohibited. So this is our first, it's small, but it is designed to bring us all together after the talk. So over to you, Narek. Thank you very much for coming. We're all ears.
What's the question? Should I read downstairs or?
Whatever you're most comfortable with. If you are happy here, you stay here. If you'd like to move there, you can move there.
Okay, as there is some reviews from the point that will.
Then it's better there, yes.
So, Honorable Mr. Ambassador, Honorable Dr. Sultan, first of all, I would like to thank all of you for attending this meeting. It's a great honor for me today to have to prepare a lecture for all of you, and I hope that we together will have a fruitful and useful discussion today. But the first, let me a little bit represent the Orbeli Center, which already Dr. mentioned. Orbeli Center was founded, was established, let's say, in 2019. It's a governmental think tank which was provided by our Prime Minister. It was a center for giving and preparing recommendations for our government, and not only for our government, in external, internal politics, economics, and security. It's already 3 years since it is lasted, and I hope and I believe that intellectual think tanks and centers are the things and are the models which has a chance to prepare more and more creative and more prospective society. The topic the main purpose of today's discussion today is a Nagorno-Karabakh issue and the situation in South Caucasus. You know that, and we will also in this point will touch the relations between Armenian-Turkish relations and also Armenian-Russian relations. In 2020, in September 27, maybe all of you already know about this, some of you were not, I will tell. The Azerbaijan started war against Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. The name we call it Artsakh. It's an Armenian name of Nagorno-Karabakh. So it is created a fertile ground of new geopolitical situation in South Caucasus. And nobody can deny it, and nobody wants to deny it. For the first sight, it can be, for the first sight, it can be seemed a local problem between two countries, between Armenia and Azerbaijan. But if we look through to the conflict, we can notice that there were some external parties, directly involved in this conflict. And involvement of this country suggested that the conflict is not over yet and extends beyond the region. This second war, it was the largest since 1994, I will tell about it later, revealed huge kind of new complications in the Nagorno-Karabakh issue, which already suggests that the talk of complete settlement, unfortunately, can be classified as a genre of wish. Everybody wants peace, but unfortunately, as the situation now happening in the South Caucasus, especially in Nagorno-Karabakh, unfortunately, it's not over yet. In political language, we usually call it wishful thinking. So let me tell about a little bit some historic moment of relating to this conflict, because maybe there could be a question why Armenia and Azerbaijan for already 30 years fighting with each other. The Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has deep historical roots, and the massacres of Armenian population in Nagorno-Karabakh, especially in historical and cultural center of Nagorno-Karabakh, Shushi, took place in 1918 to 1920 years. If you remember, it was a moment that there were First World War. And that massacres were carried out by the Tatarian living in Nagorno-Karabakh under auspices of political leadership of Ottoman Empire. The aim of these massacres were just simple: to make, in the use of force of Armenian population living in Nagorno-Karabakh, to accept the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. And of course, Armenians did not do it. And also because of it, as a consequence of that bloody events, especially by the direct involvement of USSR leadership, Joseph Stalin, Nagorno-Karabakh was forcibly incorporated to Azerbaijan since the end of the clash of USSR. But let me say one important thing. The problem is not making territorial demands, as our Azerbaijani colleagues insist. It is exclusively ethno-political conflict based on, especially on the right of people living in Nagorno-Karabakh for their self-determination, to live freely and dignity on their own land. Since the years of the collapse of USSR, this was not the first massacres which I mentioned already about. There were also massacres in Azerbaijani cities, in Sumgait and in Baku, in 1919 and 1988. And its Armenian population casualed a lot, taking advantage of slowness of Soviet Union government, or let's say, better to say, the criminal inaction to this, to eliminate the Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh, to forcefully suppress. However, due to the collective will of Armenian people and resolute will of Artsakh Armenians to have an independence, Azerbaijani authorities understood and finally accepted their defeat in a first Karabakh war in 1994, and they agreed to make ceasefire in 1994. So we are coming nowadays. I mean, in 2020, what happened? In 2020, September 27, Azerbaijani armed forces launched a large-scale attack against Nagorno-Karabakh. I have already told that since 1994, it was the bloodiest events in the history of these two republics. Turkey and Pakistan, these two countries, openly supported Azerbaijan in their initiatives. Moreover, Turkish armed forces were directly involved in these hostilities. There were also huge kind of mercenaries from the Middle East in armed forces of Azerbaijan, and some of who were captured by the Armenian side and then later confessed. The war lasted 44 years. Sorry, days. And due to Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russian side, there was signed a statement between Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia to stop war. Armenian side undertook its withdrawal from adjacent region in adjacent regions of the Nagorno-Karabakh, including Agdam, Karvachar, Sangelan, Kubatlu, and Jabrail. Also the Hadrut region and the town of Shushi, which were directly part of Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Republic, also came under control of Azerbaijani armed forces. According to the variety of situations, their Armenian sides, the casualties from Armenian side were almost 4,000. From Azerbaijani side, it is officially stated, it's almost 3,000. But that fact, I mean, the casualties of Azerbaijani can be much more better, because the authorities sometimes hide the real picture. So, what's now? The current situation. Although the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan have met after that war, the Second Karabakh War, several times, but the substantive talks and substantive negotiations between these countries about Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, unfortunately, doesn't exist. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev not one time mentioned that the conflict is over and there is nothing to negotiate. Azerbaijan restored its territorial integrity, and the presence of Russian peacekeepers who were deploying, by the way, in a statement mentioned 2020 November 9, are temporary. The Armenian side insists otherwise. The Armenian side insists that the talks should continue in a Minsk group co-chairing, OSCE, which is, by the way, the only format of negotiating in this conflict, who has comprehensive tools, tools, and final mandate to resolve the conflict. They had final mandate to resolve the conflict. But I would like to note that the countries who are representing Minsk Group, France, USA, and Russian Federation, the representative of that countries, not one time mentioned that it can be solved. It can be declared to be solved, the conflict. For example, during her visit in the southern part of Armenia, Lynn Tracy, the ambassador of United States of America in Armenia, with the talk with the journalist, mentioned that the conflict can't be described resolved until the status of Nagorno-Karabakh is resolved. France President Emmanuel Macron insisted on and called on two sides, two leaders, to sit in a table and discuss the final resolution of this conflict. Also, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, if I'm not wrong, 2 weeks ago, mentioned that the process of demarcation and delimitation in a border with the Armenian, the limitation and demarcation between Armenia and Azerbaijan doesn't mean that the Nagorno-Karabakh issue is resolved. It is nothing to do with it. So we can declare that the Minsk Group representative also cannot deny that the conflict is not over. So, as I mentioned before, Turkey openly supports Azerbaijan in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. They didn't deny it. Moreover, they stated it for several times. President Erdogan stated many times that the Turkey had always stood with the brotherly Azerbaijan and supported him in Nagorno-Karabakh issue. Turkey also supports of the thesis launch of, let's say, so-called Zangezur corridor. I will talk about it later. On the opening and regional communities, regional communications by Azerbaijan. But it was stated in 9 November statement that there is no provision about corridor logic. We are just talking about transport unblocking between two countries. Yes. The Armenian side, at the level of his Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Deputy Prime Minister Meher Grigoryan, has repeatedly expressed about it, that corridor logic doesn't exist. Currently, it seems to be the only obstacle in the opening regional communications. The fact that the Armenian captives, which are still kept in Azerbaijan, which they were taking after the signing of 9 November. This refers to the subtage operations, because the war ended in 9 November, but the Azerbaijani sides insist that they were taken to the prison after the military operations. So almost 100 people now from Armenian side are taken in Baku. So now in this moment, both Russian Federation, international community, France, United States are trying to do their best and they are making huge effort to ensure to safe return to these people in their homeland in Armenia. So as I talked about Turkey, I will talk also about Armenian-Turkish relations, because since gaining independence, Armenia and Turkey several times have gone through the relations between Armenia and Turkey have gone through a historical period. In the 1990s, when Armenia declares independence, Turkey, in 1990s, yes, between Armenia and Turkey were trying to make diplomatic relations between of these countries. But however, after victory of Armenia in the First Karabakh War in 1990s, unfortunately, that relations are stopped and reached to the, let's say, deadlock. And definitely after the ceasefire signed in May in 1994, there were several attempts from Armenian side to make relations and make diplomatic relations with Turkey, but unfortunately it came out to fail. But let me clear one thing. When we are talking about Armenian-Turkish relations, very, very often, and also the expert and the normal and usual society understand there is a confusion even in professional circles. The point of these relations are often analyzed as a professional circles under the common idea of establishing relations. Meanwhile, if it's necessary, it is very necessary to clear that distinguish the differences between the process of normalization and the process of reconciliation. It's two different things. In 2008, we call it football diplomacy. Maybe some of you heard about it. From Armenian side was initiative from Armenian president of that time, Serge Sargsyan, invited the president of Turkey, Abdullah Gül, in Yerevan to watch a football game Armenia-Turkey together. And was the second game also in Trabzon, where already our president come to Turkey to watch the second game with the president of the Turkey. And at that moment, we, Armenian society, maybe believed that there could be some chances to create that relations. But unfortunately, the normalization of Armenian-Turkish relations go to the deadlock, because that protocols on the establishment or diplomatic relations without any precondition between the foreign ministers of the countries, which was made in 2009 in Zurich. But later, Turkey refused relating to this agreement, and maybe for some political reasons as well. So after the second Karabakh War, all of us understand that the situation is not the same. And but establish the relations with the Turkey is now more and complicated geopolitical conditions. We're just now starting this moment also. Turkey and Armenia, they are neighbors. They lived with each other for a long, long time. So the alternative, I can see no alternative of establishing relations between Armenia and Turkey. For example, quite recently, the Turkish foreign minister, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, stated during his interview that to seize the normal relations between Armenia and Turkey, there are special envoys who already have met in Moscow one time. From Armenian side, it's the Deputy Parliamentary Speaker Ruben Rubinyan, and from the Turkish side, it is previous ambassador in USA, Serdar Kılıç. It becomes clear that from the official press release after the meeting that the first meeting between these envoys was a cognitive nature, and it is planning to be continuous, that meetings. If I'm not wrong, if it's not mistaken, into February 24, they are going to visit, they are going to make their second meeting. So we hope that that time and the discussion also will be useful and fruitful. So this experience has shown in the case of Armenia is imperative to establish the direct relations between Armenia and Turkey. Turkey has more than once stated that it coordinates the process of normalization of its relations with Armenia with Azerbaijan, and continues to support that country in the Nagorno Karabakh conflict. It is also obvious, but however, it doesn't mean that that there is no need to have dialogue with the Turkey. From Armenian side, I think it should be, and immediately. Currently, it is too early to make any significant statement between Armenia and Turkish. Armenia and Turkish governments, but the process, I have already told about it, is in the process. As for Armenian-Russian relations, Russia is a strategic partner of Armenia since 1990s. And Armenia and Russia have established diplomatic relations for more about, let's say, 30 years. And since independence of Armenia, let's say, in this word. And today there are already for over 215 intergovernmental and undergovernmental and intergovernmental agreements and decisions of areas of mutual interest between Armenia and Russia. On April 1992, and declared in 1997, the Armenian-Russian Mutual Assistance Treaty was signed, which works till today between Armenia and Russia, not between Nagorno-Karabakh and Russia. The Russian 102nd military based in stationed in Armenia, protecting the borders between Armenia and Turkey. These relations has undergone many transformations over 30 years. There were good times, there were bad times. However, we should note that regardless of interpolitical and geopolitical upheavals, there were no clear anti-Russian sentiments in Armenia. And after 2020, in 2020 war, in Nagorno-Karabakh second war, some concerns around these relations were existing and still existing among the Armenian society for the first. About the war in Nagorno-Karabakh conflict as and then the consequence of Azerbaijani aggression against Armenia. So internationally recognized borders of Armenia in 2021, and it's all about that concerns were about Russian reaction, why Russia react in this way. It's all about the events which happened in May 12 in 2021, when Azerbaijani armed forces crossed the borders of Armenia, 45 kilometers in all area. In these days, Armenia applied the STO, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, of which it has its membership since 1992, sorry. And the general, more producial solution was given to the application, and Security General of STO, Stanislav Zas, described that events as a border dispute between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So in that context of time, it was logical that the other states being a part of force structure should be developed peacekeeping troops on the Armenian-Azerbaijani borders. But until the border disputed between Armenia and Azerbaijan were resolved. As I said, there's still going the demarcation and delimitation process between these two countries. But it was obvious that Russia, who is a locomotive of all this situation, didn't want to spoil his relations between Azerbaijan, because we know that Russia has also very, very close relations with Azerbaijan as well. So the process now is in his way, and political diplomatic means was conditioned by that. But what to expect in the future? Yes, I'm almost finishing. What can say about the future? The Second Karabakh War was really a serious order for Armenia and Armenian society. We are not denying it. We are accepting there were some difficult. The war highlighted a great range of issues related to the public administration, and it is obvious that the problem is not solved yet. There is nothing. There is much more to do in the future. But as it was ceasefire, I want also mention that although Armenia was defeated in that war, but this Armenia is still alive and has many tools to in a context of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, since the Nagorno-Karabakh maintained administrative state management with a representative of departments, for example, Prime Minister, the President, the Prime Minister, and law enforcement agencies. The entire Defense Army and armed forces withdraw only from the adjacent regions of Nagorno-Karabakh, and together with the Russian peacekeeper, they are continuing to ensure the security of Armenian population there. And the last, Armenia continues to be the Nagorno-Karabakh's main partner in implementation of economic and social projects. So the Nagorno-Karabakh status is not resolved yet. And the conflict cannot be resolved by military means, as Minsk Group OBSE also mentioned. Although Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev stated that the Minsk Group has nothing to deal with the entire issue since it's already been resolved, it is fact that international community, I've already mentioned, United States, France, and Russia insist otherwise. Nevertheless, it should be noted that the current situation in South Caucasus doesn't promise stability in the near future, and especially after Second Karabakh War. So, for example, when Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev announced that towards the sovereign announces in declaration that sovereign territory of Armenia, particularly Syunik, the ancient name Zangezur, greatly contribute to this. Recently, during, for example, the meeting of the journalists, Aliyev said that the opening of the Zangezur corridor should cover the whole region, calling it in a territorial of historic of Azerbaijan part, calling that region historical part of Azerbaijan. He also added that the one shouldn't believe that kind words of Armenian authorities, and as there are revanchist forces both in the current government and also in opposition. But nevertheless, the process of achieving public solidarity in inner political life still continues. It didn't end even with the snap of elections. But generally, Armenia has somehow managed to recover himself. I mean, from the war, which he was defeated, restore his security, and broke out half a year ago, and the stage of overcoming them has begun. So I hope that everything between these two countries, I mean the relations between Armenia and Turkey, between Armenia and Azerbaijan, in a new geopolitical situation, will be continued only in a way of negotiations, because the Second Karabakh War revealed that there is no solution to the conflict if we are trying to solve that problem with a force. That force was first initiative by Azerbaijan in 1994 and the second time in 2020, and is still the conflict is not resolved. So the only way I see in a political way, and all of sides should be concentrate on this topic. So one more time, I want to thank Dr. Sultan for giving me such kind of chance to have and to discuss with you this topic. And if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer related to this topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Narek. Thank you. Please come and join me here, Narek.
One more question.
Thank you very much. We're taking a little bit more than we had planned, but I think it was very important that Narek had the space to express the point
Sorry
of
for
view.
taking some more time.
It's all right, don't worry. No problem. It was important that you express those important point of views. As is the tradition with this, I'll start asking the questions and then I'll come back to you if you don't mind. And I know there are a lot of people here waiting to ask or to comment on what you said. But let me start with from an academic perspective, from somebody who is an independent observer. You concluded by saying negotiation is the only way forward. But some would say this is what they've done since 1994 to 2020. There was a negotiation process that seems to have gone nowhere. And it has gone and on and on and on and on and on, and led to a lot of frustration, particularly on the Azari side. And then they managed to mobilize military-wise and resolve what they see from their perspective. They resolved the issue. They restored the land as far as they're concerned. Why was it all these years for negotiation led to nowhere?
No, good question. For the first side, if there is no negotiations, although there were negotiations, it doesn't mean that the sides, in this moment the Azerbaijani side, should strive to operate military hostilities. It doesn't mean that the war is the only solution to this problem, because if I'm not wrong, in 2011 in Kazan, there were almost agreements between Armenia and Azerbaijan due to Russian. At that time, the Russian president was Dmitry Medvedev. There were almost complete solution. I wouldn't say the complete solution, but the solution, which of course was not the dream of Armenian side, and it was not the dream of Azerbaijani side. But there were compromising solution between these two countries. But in a last minute, Azerbaijani side, and especially the president of Azerbaijan, declares that he's not fond of that negotiations, and unfortunately it came to deadlock. In 2016, in April events, also there were April events, we call it 4-day war between Nagorno Karabakh and Azerbaijan. Also, the two sides, Azerbaijan and Armenia, agrees with some details. But I just want to say that okay, if there is a war, of course, it is obvious that the negotiation process in a let's say how to say it, in a deadlock. But now at this moment, what we found out, if it is resolved or not, maybe the solution that two countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan, should work with their societies. For example, now in Azerbaijan, if little children, they hate Armenians, you can just find the videos on internet where the teacher, for example, says, "Who is our enemies?" Children, they say Armenians. We should work with our.
Excuse me. I will give you a chance to ask questions.
You can just find that videos, and you can notice that there can be done work with societies, because if little children talks about it, it means that we are coming to the
point. The negotiations failed. You think it's failed because there was no will to reach a solution?
Political will.
There was no political
will between the political elites.
Okay, so that's important if we're going to move into a new phase, then we think political will has got to be done. Okay, if I may move to the second question. What about the people of Nagorno-Karabakh? Where are they now? What is happening to the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, the population of Nagorno-Karabakh? What is their opinion?
They are in Nagorno-Karabakh, but some part of them. After the Second Karabakh War, many of them, unfortunately, now some of them in Armenia, they loses their homes. Some of them went abroad, and we are trying to make them come back to their lands. And majority of them now in the capital of Nagorno-Karabakh in Stepanakert. And there are now in this moment there are
they're under military rule, they're under rule of Azerbaijan now.
No, because the three regions, especially in Nagorno-Karabakh, in Askeran, Martakert, and Martuni, is still under control of Armenian forces. Between them, deploying Russian peacekeepers, and two regions, Hadrut region and Shushi, now under control of Azerbaijani armed forces. So the people who were living in Shushi and Hadrut region now. Most of them in Armenia now. They're now in Armenia because they're lost their homes.
Right. Okay. And my last question, and then I'll come back to you. You mentioned nothing about Iran and Israel in this war, although my understanding is that they play kind of subtle role, both of them, and it has become part of this balance of power that is going on.
As for Iran has not one time mentioned that the president of at the time the president of Iran, Hassan Rouhani, announced that he wants to solve that conflict in a Minsk group, OSCE co-chairing, which means that he's supporter of political negotiation process. As for Israel, Israel has very close relations with Azerbaijan. Armenian side, I cannot say that it is the same also with the Armenian side, because they have cooperation with the military sides, I mean Azerbaijan and Israel. So and there were many drones, let's say, which was taken from Israel to Azerbaijan with, of course, huge money. Armenia doesn't have such kind of money, and the relations between Armenia and Israel now at this moment they are just in a recovering situation.
But Iran did not support Armenia in the war.
No, Iran didn't support Armenia. Iran didn't support Azerbaijan. Iran didn't support the war. Okay. Iran supported the negotiation process, geopolitical negotiations process.
Okay, Thank you very much. Thank you for clarifying these points. I think it's clear that this is an issue with a deep historical roots, and I would prefer that we don't dig too deep because I think it's going to be very problematic.
Yes.
But let's focus on the last 20, 30 years, because this is something we do here in the Middle East quite often, you know. My students are here when they do conflict analysis about Palestine, and we go back to Jesus Christ. So let's keep at the level of the last 20, 30 years in our discussion. And again, please, we'll take the questions. If you have a statement that you'd like to make, let's make it very, very short, very, very brief, to the point that was said by Narek. So if there is a specific thing, please do say it. But we welcome mostly questions so that we inform ourselves. The whole idea of this is to inform our audience in Doha. And I must say, I'm extremely impressed that we managed to fill the auditorium in the middle of COVID and term and so on. So there's, you know, great interest in learning more about this. So please help us learn more. We'll open the questions. Please. He's my colleague in this.
Thank you. You know, there's a great English expression which is "read the room," right? And after really reading the room, I feel that I have to really maybe introduce myself to make sure that I'm on the no side of this really equation. I'm a professor with the Department of Critical Security Studies, and I work on protracted conflicts and strategic rivalries. And really regrettably, you know, Sultan, I work on the history really of conflicts and really narratives in particular. Now you mentioned, but then you really didn't really continue, the involvement of societies in such really intractable relationships that are very hostile, that extend over periods of time. And so really the issue over which really societies and the political elite compete become really blurry, and they mix in with a whole bunch of other sets of hostilities and really relationships. So disentangling this complexity becomes very difficult. And so you mentioned, you know, societies, and given my interest in societies, and given really what I would like you to do is talk about the Armenian side, since it's very obvious that this is what you're doing. Is there a point where the Armenians have to look onto their own history introspectively, be maybe really critical, which is very difficult, you know, to do, because you know that there's another that's not very maybe generous. Is there something, an issue, a dimension, a point in history, right, that has been implanted into this really narrative that you think can be looked back upon, and the Armenians have to be maybe critical of themselves as a movement really forward, because we know that there may be two ways where things end.
Are you referring
One
to
kills the other.
The narrative of victim.
No, see, the narratives could be one of really victimhood, but I want him really to say that. I didn't want to really prompt him into that. So I want to try to understand, now it's out. Do you see that there's a point that you can really look back to deconstruct, you know, that narrative? Because again, maybe in general, there are two ways that such really intractable conflicts end. One kills the other, it's over. Or there's a shock that's very, really massive, or a very slow processes of introspection. Those tend to work less than shocks or death. So since you mentioned really politics is the way to go, where do we start from it? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Of course, when I'm talk about the society. What?
So go respond to this one, and then I'll take other questions, please.
Okay.
We're going to take 3 questions at a time. تفضل. In the middle there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Narek. Welcome to Qatar, firstly, and thanks to everyone for attending. I know, no need to say this, but it's a very sensitive topic, and I do feel some tension in the room, which is perfectly fine as long as we can agree on something after, at least while having a coffee. You've mentioned a lot of history, and you've touched on some sensitive things like massacres and something that really touched the nerves, right? Well, I'm not going to go into that and try to comment on, going back to the history with Griboyedov bringing Armenians to the territory of modern Azerbaijan and Iran. And if you look at the map, you look at the Armenia, which is a line between Turkey and Azerbaijan, which was part of Russian Empire back then. There was a need by the Russian Empire to separate the two Turkic people, right? So all of that, plus the massacres and all that nasty stuff, which I don't want to really bore the audience with, that can be Googled. When I looked at the heading of your presentation, it said possible developments.
It's me.
Yeah, I know. I can tell. So what I was hoping to hear more, and maybe you can elaborate on this. We had a war back in '94, yeah, which resulted with Armenia keeping control of Nagorno-Karabakh and the adjacent regions and all that, right? There was a negotiation for 26 years. Let me be honest, a lot of blah, blah, blah. And you've spoken from Armenian perspective, so I hope it's okay if I speak from Azeri perspective for a change. The OSCE Minsk group, Russia, France, and US conveniently happen to be the three biggest supporters of Armenia, right? So for us, all these 26 years, we knew these negotiations, there's a very, very little chance of them leading anywhere, right? Now, the war happened, and I don't know if you can trust me on this, but it's the last thing that we wanted, although we felt like it's probably the only way, yeah? And it's gonna drag on and on and on and on until generation 3 or 4 just say, okay, let him have it, yeah? So what I wanted to ask, question, how do you, and maybe Armenian society, because I'll be very honest with the attitude that I've seen from you now, I'm now thinking like, hey, I think there's a long way, right, for a political or any peaceful solution. Now, maybe in the Armenian society, there are a lot of representatives of the Armenian community here. Maybe they can comment afterwards. I'll be really interested to hear your opinion on this. Do you really see a peace possible? Because now in Azerbaijan, you can say, well, yeah, you won the war. It's easy for you to say, maybe. But the way that we see it is a peace will bring a lot of developments to the region. And if you look in the 30 years, yes, we lost Karabakh, we managed to develop the oil and gas and blah, blah, blah. It went through Georgia, it would go through Turkey. Armenia was the shortest route, but because of this, we cannot have it, right? So Armenia would get paid, just like Azerbaijan and Georgia got paid, right? And I personally want nothing but prosperity for our neighbors, all of them. Because if I know that if you're happy, there'll be probably less problems with me, yeah? So from the society point of view, how do you see this being resolved?
Thank you very much. I'll take one last question and then we'll come back. Right.
Thank you, Narek, and thank you, Dr. Sultan, for this really important discussion. You didn't tell us about what's your vision for a solution, right? What is the Armenians' vision for a solution? Especially after the latest development of the second war, right? Where do we go from here? And also to build on Dr. Sultan's important point about negotiations that did not produce anything. Actually, it's still the same mediator that's in charge of trying to mediate this conflict. The Minsk group and their failure since 1994. So what is going to change, and what is the vision that you think this can be the solution from the Armenian perspective? Thank you.
Thank you very much. In fact, the point about mediators kind of was made here as well, that maybe it is a failure of mediation that led to such an extended negotiations. But you have 3 points, one about the narrative, you've got them all, yeah. And then peace possible, is it possible? Given the history and the vision for a solution.
The first question and the second question is they're very, very like each other. Why? If we are look through the narratives, we can never find a solution. Every time, every side, and Armenia, both Azerbaijan, has its own truth. And my vision is, if you want to solve the problem, you should take account one thing. That solution which we are trying to find will not be the aim of our imagination, will not be the dream of our imagination from both sides. And I'm saying about political elite, whether we have will to resolve this problem, because if we are going through all these processes, of course, in both societies, there will be sides that will be disgraceful for it. And it will be consecutive. There will be some consequences of that political elite. As for societies and historical events which happened between Armenia and Azerbaijan, of course. But let me remind that when we won in 1994, no Armenian authorities, the first, the second, the third, and the prime minister, the rulers of Armenia, has never announced that Baku is a historical capital of Armenia. And there were no announces that, you know, the word Itigovan. In Azerbaijan, you know what does it mean. It's from the society and for the...
I can translate if you want. I'm so sorry. It is speedy. Govan, going speedy.
Mm-hmm.
You may interpret in a way as
Let me finish.
Thank you.
Let me finish.
Thank you.
I want to say that from the sides of Armenian authorities, there were never asked the territorial claims of Azerbaijan capital in Baku. But for example, Azerbaijani president, I won't say otherwise, but the rhetoric from the winning side could not be the same as it was before the war, you know, because winning side doesn't behave as much behave your president, as I understand.
But it goes back to the whole issue of political elite and the way they manipulate the conflict. I'll come back to you in a second. Just in a second, wait. No.
Thank you very much.
No, excuse me. I'll come back to you in a minute. We'll ask another round of questions. No, let him answer the question first.
You want to stop me?
If you like coffee, we can just talk in the
Absolutely.
coffee
Why
break.
no?
No, please. It's a point of order, please. Because he's still answering the questions. Let him answer the questions. Finish your answers.
Yes, and
I'll
about
come back to you
societies,
first.
of course, I understand that we have a lot of work to do with Armenian society, of course,
Yeah.
in a
This is true.
new geopolitical situation, because we lost the war. Nothing can be changed in this moment. Of course, it seems it is clear that we should work with our society. That's why, for example, our prime minister announced that there's his government try to bring a peace period in a life of Armenian society. So we are trying to achieve this. We are trying to go in this process directly. And that's from, what does it mean? Of course, it means to work with the society. After lose, to explain what had happened, and then go further.
Okay, so what are you aiming to go to? What is the vision? Was asked.
What is the vision?
Sorry.
So, the solution of this problem, I can see only in a political way, as I already mentioned. It means that the Armenia and the Azerbaijan should talk with each other, maybe in a moment directly, maybe.
But my question is about the solution, the vision.
The solution. The solution, I cannot say the solution. If I find the solution, From my perspective, it is obvious that there can be, of course, notes the will of people who living in Nagorno Karabakh. 75% of Nagorno Karabakh people, they are Armenians, and Azerbaijani authorities also, they don't deny it. After clashing USSR, Nagorno-Karabakh, as Armenia, as Azerbaijan, declared independence. And Nagorno-Karabakh also declares independence. That people doesn't want to live in a territory of Azerbaijan because we have many, many massacres, we have many, many incidents with that government. If the one side started the war against you and started it 3 times since 30 years, how can you imagine that people living at this moment together? That's why the only thing, sorry, I'm just finishing, to find approach for self-determination of people of Nagorno-Karabakh.
Thank you very much. So it's self-determination as you see it. Please.
Yeah. I will speak without microphone. Mr. Narek, thank you very much for interesting discussion.
Introduce yourself, please. Say who you are. Introduce yourself.
My name is Solmaz, member of Azerbaijani community in Qatar, and we are attending to this meeting is very positive, to be honest with you, because as my colleague said, we saw the possible developments, and we are all very much interested in possible developments. And we decided, let's attend, maybe we will get know something that we didn't know before. We will think about it and we will work on about it. We don't want anybody to be inconvenient in my country. So I feel really bad and I feel very sorry when you say that there is such a big hate in Azerbaijan. How we can hate you if 50,000 minimum Armenians as of now living in Karabakh of Azerbaijan, 30,000 Armenians live in Baku, which is no peacekeeper forces over there. People living there regular life. Now the question I want to ask,
My neighbor is one of them.
Azerbaijanis are living in Armenia. You will really very surprise me if you give me at least 10 people name. I will feel very much happy. So I'm talking about the hate. Why from the position of victim, this is I also noticed by the way. It's very easy to put himself or yourself in a position of victim in saying that no, we are the suffering party, we are losing the war. It cannot be winner or loser in the war. War is a losing for both parties. Azerbaijan lost a lot. Since 90s, we have lost more than 50,000 lives. Azerbaijanis lives, as a kids, women, everybody. Do you really think that we feel ourselves a winner? You know how much we lost in last war, we are saying. And I don't want to count this war, first, second, so I don't want war. We don't want war. I came for the peace, unfortunately, Mr. Narek. I didn't get any message of peace from you. To my biggest regret. I came for the peace because I want Armenian society to come and say, guys, stop this game. We want to live our life. 100 years, Armenians lived together with Azerbaijanis. They shared the food, they shared everything, own life. What happened? If Azerbaijan was a party who attacked in 90s, how we can lose 20% of our territory if we were the one who started the war? We're supposed to win, right? Because we are suing Azerbaijan.
Thank you. It's very clear. Thank you very much. I'll take another question here, please. Right at the front here, the microphone.
Thank you so much,
introduce
Mr.
yourself.
Bereket. My name is Emre Özkan. I am coming from Turkish Embassy in Doha. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity, Mr. Barakat. Thank you so much, Mr. Adamyan, for your remarks. Since you are representing the Armenian government and I'm also representing Turkish side, I want to add a couple of points, but I don't want to create additional controversial ideas or opinions. As you mentioned in your presentation, you outlined the events between 1920s until 1994. You shared almost 10 minutes to express what happened in that period. But what I realized that you suddenly jumped to 2020 and then explained the historical facts from your side. It's understandable. Every side has its own perception. But the problem here is that the selective approach of explaining the sufferings
will not yield results. We have to, as you mentioned, we have to focus on the future and use the negotiations as a tool for a new future. You mentioned Turkey supported Azerbaijan. Yes, because our support is coming from, stemming from not only we accept Azerbaijani brothers and sisters as our brotherly country, but also we believe that it's also in line with the international law. There are relevant UN resolutions, and there are relevant the facts that Azerbaijan liberated its own territory from roughly 30-year occupation. So this is the point of view of Turkey. And you mentioned that the Turkish armed forces, but we don't accept that Turkish armed forces involved in this war 2 years ago. And President Erdogan, what our president is now giving messages for a future perspective is that yes, there was a war, you are right, and one side wins, one side loses, but we have to focus on the future. So we can all benefit from the peace atmosphere. So that's why the negotiations, that's why dialogue is important. If we do not talk each other directly, face to face, without any preconditions, then we cannot have the peace vision for the future. And last September, I remember the remarks of Prime Minister Pashinyan. He gave positive messages. And our President Erdogan, he reciprocated.
Yes.
So this is an important development. After that, we appoint our special envoys. Then that is a necessity for engaging direct dialogue. So for the future, yes, maybe my Azerbaijani colleagues will add my remarks, new points. As I stated before, all sides, that's why we are supporting the initiative of President Aliyev, 3+3. We hope this also create another area for cooperation in terms of transportation, in terms of infrastructure, cooperating in economic areas. So we hope more projects can be discussed in the future so that we can end this suffering.
Thank you very much. And I think, we're living moments of normalization everywhere these days. So you really need to catch the wave while it is going. If United Arab Emirates can normalize with Israel and now Turkey with the Gulf states and so on. So it's a good moment to really move on. And just to add, this is just my own observation, I don't know if you know this, but beautifully in the Embassy of Turkey here in Doha, it is decorated by a wonderful collection of Armenian artists. And what's his name? Aragirel. Yes.
He's a photographer.
Photographer, is it? Yeah. Okay. Down to you, your question, please. Here, microphone, this mic. Come back to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Mkhitar Hayrapetyan. I am the previous Minister of Diaspora of the Republic of Armenia and also the Chairman of the Committee on Education and Science of the Armenian Assembly. Now I'm here in Qatar with other mission, but decided to attend this beautiful event. Also because Narek Adamyan is my friend. So first, I was thinking that it's incorrect to ask any questions, but I am kind of inspired of some debates between our colleagues and the speaker. And even if I wasn't planning to ask a question, but now I have. Narek, I'm wondering, are there any facts? Has ever Azerbaijani side showed any facts about the Armenian educational programs at kindergarten, at schools, at higher education institutions, when there is a hate concerning Azerbaijani people or not? Has ever they showed this kind of facts? Because it's very measurable. Hate in the educational programs, it's measurable. There are facts or there are not. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's give Narek an opportunity to respond because there are already 3 questions, and then we'll come back.
Okay, thank you for all the questions. As I managed to write there some notes. For example, as about love, our colleagues has mentioned. If you say that you love your you love Armenians who live in your territory, and you say in Nagorno Karabakh, yes. And what do you use?
You just
You
spoke
said
so emotionally,
you
it
said
came across.
we said we love all of them. You said all of them. Yes.
It's all right.
And if you love, why you start war against them people? That's the simple question.
Narek,
Yes, of course, because yes, of course.
just a second.
This means that listen, guys, I'm not here for explaining who to start. If you insist that it's your territory and it is occupied, you start the war. It's not your vision. We never had a.
We have already dealt with that point. Let's move
Okay.
to the
So I want that I want just to say that the people who live in Nagorno Karabakh, they during all these 30 years, they see the accidents, they see the attitude, they see, and after, of course, we are talking about further developments, and we found out, and I gratitude this attitude that we should try to talk and to discuss the further development as our colleague mentioned. I'm agree with it, but the one thing that we fight, and absolutely another version when we are talk. There's a huge difference between war and talk.
Yes, but
Me also one. So as for Turkey,
I'm going to blacklist you. I never invite you.
so as for Turkey, yes, it's true that we are providing the dialogue between Armenia and Turkey. I was before the war also the supporter of direct dialogue between Armenia and Turkey, because Armenia is a small country, Turkey is a huge country, and for example, I know that maybe there's in Armenia people who still believes to come and fight with the Turkey and etc. because of Armenian genocide in 1915, but I think that it's a historical moment with Armenia and Turkey to start the direct dialogue between these two at first governmental sphere and then with the society. So I also condemn this dialogue between our representatives from our side of Armenia and from side of Turkey, and hope that our direct dialogue will be very useful for both countries, for Armenia and for Turkey. So as for the 3+3, I can't see any problem. But if there is a mandate in, Minsk Group co-chairing, which now we are trying to recover the negotiation process. If there is a mandate who should take this advantage in this format, in a 3+3 we can just discuss the economic, maybe political, but not relating on Nagorno-Karabakh issue, because there is a mandate for it, and it's a Minsk group. But as for the other spheres, economic, I don't know, external, internal politics, it's very good chance to talk, and I'm not mind.
Thank you very much. We still have 5 minutes. We'll take another round of questions. The evidence.
And for question, Mkhitar, I have talked about this in my speech.
He asked
for answering the
specifically
question.
tangible evidence. Do you have?
Yes, in Armenian society, there is no provision. There is no. You can never find in Armenian books any content. You can never find the final example that, for example, Armenians try to teach their children to hate or to massacre the Azerbaijanians. But when I see that video, it touched me a lot. That Azerbaijani teacher says, "Who is our enemies?" and the children asking that Armenians are our enemies. I want to believe that it was not the attitude who support majority of Azerbaijani population and majority Azerbaijani people. It was maybe one of the accidents, and I hope that otherwise it shouldn't be existed.
I think it is now with the social media, you can't trust anything. Even whatever you say yourself, you can find it being misinterpreted. So it's a very good answer. Let's take one last round of questions. We're pushing 6 o'clock now. The lady here first, and then Salim. Please introduce yourself. Meen. Saad Safir.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Sevil Aliyeva from Azerbaijani Society, former researcher on human rights, United Nations Human Rights Council. From international point of view, it's always mentioned Nagorno-Karabakh is internationally recognized as a part of Azerbaijan. Certainly, this is a result of monitoring and evaluation of the situation in terms of history, ethnic, or territorial facts, so that it was embedded in the resolution of the United Nations Security Council for resolution. So, how is this fact is assessed by Armenian side? Thank you.
Thank you. And Ambassador, please come in.
Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Narek. He's a fantastic historian. During my high school days, I was told history is the best subject because it tells you the truth, nothing but the truth, what really happened on the ground. And you're a good historian. However, in your own perspective, what are the do's and don'ts that you see in this conflict? The do's and don'ts. What do you want to be done? And what do you want them not to do? That then the conflict will end. What is the problem that the Armenians said, if this is on the table, that will be the end of it? Whether they will accept it or not, but in your own perspective, what are the do's and the don'ts in this project? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And Salim, the last question.
Azerbaijani counterpart was here and he was giving his presentation, you could see that there is systematic hatred towards Armenians. It was very apparent in the presentation where he made Armenian people seem like the enemy, like they're destroying the infrastructure, which from my analysis makes it true that there could be systematic violence in the education of Azerbaijan. But keeping that on the side is just something to think about. Could the enemy be the political elites in Azerbaijani and Armenian society? Because the conflict, as a conflict management student, I just can't get to the root of the conflict. It just seems to be an infinite loop of he said, they said, he said, they said. So could it be at the end point Just
أنت متأكد إنه مدرسك conflict management؟ ولا بنعطيك زيت على النار؟
يعني
You got the question, I think.
yeah.
شكرا
Thank you.
جزيلا. It's a very good way to conclude the session. Please, Narek.
As for international community, you know the Minsk Group OBSE. What does it mean? It's OSCE. Sorry. There are three basic principles in Madrid. We call it, all of us call it Madridian principles. The first is self-determination. The second, territorial integrity, and the third, non-use of force. So if this international community admits it, why then these principles? So we should concentrate only in these basic three principles. And if international community admits that there's a problem between these two sides, it should be discussed. The problem exists. It's not in the air, it's in the ground. And we should talk and discuss it. The second, what should be done to get over this conflict? Yes, the second question. To talk, nothing more. If we are talk about it, we are discussing, even if the most huge problems due to dialogue, because when people come to the world, they are trying to speak with each other, and the communication and the language which people talking with each other is the only way to solve the solutions. Even if after war they are started to talk, why then to fight? And the third, the political elite. It's the most sensitive question for me, because the behavior of political elites and the behavior of political society, it's not the same. Why we are choosing governments? To make decisions for us, to make some different and some difficult decisions instead of us. If that political elite cannot be, they are not able to solve or to find a solution for us, it means that they are bad elite. If they are starting a war, it means that they are bad elite, and we need to change them. So the political elite must be in a 2-3 level high from the society and think further. So maybe that's it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the insights. And thank you all for your contribution. We must conclude. It's past 6 o'clock, and now the lights will go off automatically here because the room is controlled electronically. I must bring it to a conclusion, and thank you all for your participation. I think from our perspective, my personal perspective, in fact, what is needed is greater dialogue outside government circles. You know, governments are good, but not good enough, to be honest, in talking when their strategic objective is at stake, no? So let's open up the conversation, more community, more intellectuals. And I would now, volunteer here to be able to welcome intellectuals from both sides, and also from Turkey and other related countries to the conflict, to come and open the conversation a little bit. Something I like, Mr. Erdogan said a few months ago about the role of historians, that we haven't really researched our own history sufficiently, and we take an issue with each other, and the history is written somewhere else, outside the region, by historians from the West or the East. So let's try and keep this conversation going. Thank you very much for coming. And I would like you now maybe to have a cup of coffee together, and we can talk informally outside. And it's very good to see that in Doha there is a good, strong Armenian community as well as an Azari community. And please feel free to join our lectures here anytime. Day after tomorrow, if you ever wondered how Doha managed to do so much in terms of politics and mediation and so on, we are hosting one of the pillars of diplomacy in Qatar. His Excellency Nasser Abdelaziz al-Nasser is going to come and speak here day after tomorrow. He was the permanent representative of Qatar in the UN throughout the Arab Spring until 2019. He has led many UN initiatives and a very experienced man. So if you feel like learning more about how Qatar does its politics, do join us on Tuesday. And again, because of Corona, you have to register in advance online, but you can find it on our website. Thank you again for coming and look forward to seeing you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.